What is up, JL Life Model here. Today, I'm going to be showing you how to install Beadlocks onto a tire. Stay tuned. We went with the Raceline Ryno forged beadlock, their new design of the 6-spoke mesh design. This is constructed of heavy-duty A356 aluminum with a forged 6061 beadlock ring. It comes with grade 8 zinc beadlock hardware and hardened steel pin nuts. With this particular application, I went with the -38 offset and of course 8 lug design. And for the tires, I went with the STT Pro Coopers 40 by 13.5 by 17. So the first thing we need to do is install our valve stem. When looking for valve stems, it's recommended you install fresh ones when installing a new tire, but of course it's not required. Also, I don't need to install my tire pressure monitoring system sensors because, well, this is going in the TJ and it doesn't have that silliness. But to install valve stems are super easy. All what you need is, of course, your valve stem and the tool. These tools are super cheap on Amazon. I bought this one for about $10. But the way you're going to install the valve stem is take off the cap. I'm going to stick it through the hole right on the tool. And that's why you have this rubber coating right here, is to protect the wheel, but you're just going to pull it into place. It is that easy, and take off the tool. That's literally all you need it for. Let's get some soapy water, and I've already installed the other 3, so this is just kind of what I have left over. The bubbles have kind of dissipated, but they're there. And you're going to go around the bead on the side, or on the inside and the outside. Get it nice and squishy. Wheel over your tire and set it on top of your wheel. Then it's trying to maneuver the outer rim to the wheel of the tire. You can do this by yourself. It is much easier having someone on both sides while maneuvering it. So I'm gonna go grab Misty and she's gonna help me real quick. Side.
Restart.
Yay! Oh, it's so close. Got it. It is doable. So after getting the initial part of the tire to sink down around the rim, it's easier to get a bucket underneath the wheel. So the weight of the tire is working with you and is suspended and not just running into the ground and you're working against the ground and the tire. And you just set down your bucket, walk your tire over, lean it onto it. So what you're looking for here is to get the bead to sit into the first groove around the beadlock. This is actually really easy to do, but like here you can see the edge of the tire is seated below the beadlock face. You start cruising around to the side you see where it starts to separate. Now what you need to do is to get all of it to look the same and get all of that in. Go around and push down on it, which you can have success with, but quite honestly, the easiest way I found to do this is having 3 screwdrivers. One I use to hold the bead as I go around, and the other ones I use to work the bead around. When it starts getting to a certain point, I hold with my chin, and I use my bigger screwdrivers to push away and down. It's as easy as that. So before I get into installing the ring, I'm going to install these spacers that I bought through Raceline. They recommend them for thicker beaded tires on the side, but these are super simple. You just lay them down into the side. These are not required for all wheels. Again, for this tire, they fit good. So after getting your spacers installed, you're going to take your ring. There's the tiered side that goes down. The flat side that has the recessed bolt holes goes up. You're going to set it down. You're going to line it up with the holes that you have. And set it down. There are a total of 32 holes going around this wheel, which is pretty typical. Comes with all the hardware. What I like to do is just get them all out, get my anti-seize, and what you're going to be doing is just dabbing some anti-seize onto each bolt, drop it in, and try to hand tighten it. Now there's a good possibility it's not, all of them are not going to reach, that's fine, but just get the anti-seize onto the threads, drop them in, try to finger tighten it. I cannot stress the importance of anti-seize on these bolts. And again, it doesn't take a lot. A little bit of anti-seize honestly goes a long way. And it's for the longevity of your wheels. So after hand dropping and hand tightening, you can zip them down. You're not going to be torquing down with the wrench. You're going to do that with an actual torque wrench. But to start them all, because they will sink quite a bit, we're going to use some power tools. And as you go around tightening them, they'll get easier for them to grab the threads as you go around, just because the space between the ring and the actual wheel are starting to get pulled down. And of course, it's just going to affect the subsequent bolt that you're tightening. Okay, so now we can move on to torquing all the bolts, and the way you're supposed to do this is like a tire in a star pattern. Each wheel manufacturer can be different, so read the instructions to your specific wheel. Mine recommends 16 to 18. I put it right in the middle at 17. But the way I make sure I keep track of this, I actually use a dry eraser pen. And I can only do this because it's a chromed out wheel. If you have a dark rim, you very well could easily just use a silver Sharpie, and of course wipe it off when you're down. But what I do, starting from where my valve stem is, I will start to go around the wheel and number each bolt. Of course, get yourself a torque wrench, lock it. Once you get it set, make sure you're locking it in place. And you'll start with the number 1 hole. What I like to do, for time's sake, I hand tighten it, then I'll go through Then you go over to 2. Then to 3. Now your first pass, because you're going to have to do multiple passes to make sure you're bringing it down evenly and slowly. Your first pass is going to take the longest, your second shorter, your third is going to be the shortest. If you need to do a subsequent 4, really just depends on how much gap you have going on. I recommend you read your wheel's specific instructions on how many passes to do and what torquage to do. Don't mind me, I'm going to go through and torque all these. Like I said, I like to hand tighten with my hand just to make the bolts go down quicker where there's that loose gap. Example right there. And it's just less turning I got to do with the torque wrench. And make sure you're keeping an eye on your actual torque settings. Okay, so after doing the first pass, you gotta do it all over again. It gets much quicker your subsequent passes that you have to do. You're not changing the torque wrench, it's staying the same. It's just, again, doing another pass and evenly sucking the ring down to the wheel. According to my phone, that only took about 10 minutes. And you can wipe off your we're almost done. All right, the last thing we need to do is to add air to suck the bead to the back of the wheel. And that's just as easy as it sounds. It's just putting air into the tire. I just recommend don't stand in front of the tire just in case you screwed something up and you're not shooting bolts at your face. I got a money maker I got to protect. I recommend any sort of air up chuck with a lead on it. That way while you air up, you can be on the other side. Of course, every tire is going to be different. About 10 PSI gets me where I need here. So there it is. It's all installed. I got the other 4 already installed in the garage. I did a tire a day for the last 4 days, and that was just to kind of ease into just doing monotonous work. Got home from the gym, just sat up in the living room and mounted a beadlock. Another really important thing is do not over torque the bolts on the ring. Over torquing can lead to stripping, which can lead to a really pain in the butt process of trying to save your wheel and drill them out. And of course you can re-drill the PIM nuts, and I'll get into that in a little bit. Avoid the headache. Torque them where they need to be. Don't over torque them. I would torque them more in the middle than on the far end, because again, they're just PIM nuts, which is like a really strong rivet nut. And of course, I'm going to take this opportunity to replace the lug nuts with some fresh ones. And we went with the 9/16 by 18. And of course, I recommend putting anti-seize on the stud heads or inside the lugs before putting them back on. So a few quick closeout information about Beadlocks. They're not DOT approved. I don't recommend them for daily drivers, just because, I mean, you technically can, but you can't get away from the fact that it just adds more maintenance things to be checking on. And if you're daily driving it, I recommend trying to simplify as much of the maintenance as possible. But these ring bolts need to be retorqued every 100 miles, not every 100 miles. You need to check them because they can back out, and what you don't want to happen is pressure from the tire pushing out to start pushing out your bolts, whether they're shooting out or you're stripping out the nuts that are inside of it. It is another thing that you will constantly have to monitor. Also, don't exceed the manufacturer's recommended PSI on these. Raceline advises not to exceed 25 PSI. Of course, I won't ever be doing that. I'll probably be sitting at around 18-20 PSI when I'm not wheeling it, just so I don't get flat spots in the tire sitting in the driveway. Another thing about these wheels that was really well thought of, besides just how sexy they look, is how these nuts attach. So this is an aluminum wheel. Obviously, steel bolts and aluminum, mixing metals like that don't jive well. It can basically fuse the two metals together, make it impossible to get the bolts out, essentially ruining your expensive wheels. But what Raceline does, they use what's called a PIMS nut, and I'll show you those here in a second. But it's a steel PIMS nut that gets pressed into the back, kind of like a rivet, but much more robust. So when you're getting new tires onto your Beadlocks and you're taking out the bolts, it is highly suggested that you replace the hardware when doing so. And it is not uncommon for Beadlocks in general, as you take the bolts in and out, and of course all the stress that you're putting on the tire and the wheel as you're off-roading, it messes up the threads inside of the wheel. That's where these PIM nuts come in clutch. So when you do take it out and the threads are starting to get messed up, you can knock out the PIM nut and install a new one and be basically starting fresh. The idea is that these are going to be lifelong wheels for me and not something that needs to be replaced. So these are the PIM nuts I was talking about. It's nothing fancy. You just press it into the back of the wheel where the rings bolt in, and you can just replace these as needed. Really awesome idea. And another thing I didn't appreciate when I had first started building Bromance is I wanted black wheels because I thought they would look good. Facts are facts, man. Much more photogenic. And then of course replacing the lug nuts is just adding that extra mint factor. However, I gotta do some cleanup on those. They look trashy. And all these lugs, of course, are all old, beat up on. There's two different size of lugs in there. Yeah. And go give my friend Stephanie Erickson a follow on Instagram. She has this badass LJ that she wheels the hell out of, and she's the one who turned me on to these Raceline wheels in the first place. So go give her a follow. Me and Missy have signed up for an Amazon affiliates link. It took me a while to finally do it, but we've done it. Some link to some tools below. Help a brother out. We get a small commission on things that you buy through the link. I would really appreciate it. But if not, no worries. But guys, I hope this video was informative, useful, and I hope you got to enjoy the pretty look of the Ryno Beadlocks from Raceline. But you gotta remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Till the next one, y'all. Keep it easy.